quit.
And we're on the air after an hour of problems. Anyway, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the second installment of Path of Tavern. Today we have Brian Wall with us from Octavarius. We're just going to hang out and talk about some games and stuff. So yeah,
let's do it.
So Brian, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Brian Wall from Octavarius.
And then as always, we have Pat as well, and myself,
Yeah.
Tyler. My camera on my laptop stopped working. We do.
The show must go on.
So, yes, the show must go on. So, let's start with Brian. What interesting Octavarius stuff do you got coming up? Sketches, whatnot on the website?
Yeah, we have a couple of releases coming out in the next month on the YouTube channel, and we're still continuing our work with BuzzFeed, so that's very fun. And probably have a couple of tour dates still in February, but we're trying to stay in LA to kind of make a couple more things here.
Very cool. I saw that you guys were at SpaceX, or you were at SpaceX specifically. You want to talk a little bit about that?
We were, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we got a private tour of the SpaceX facility where they create the rockets to go to space. It's pretty wild. The newest thing that they're working on is having the booster that normally would just fall to the ocean and be garbage. They are trying to land that onto a barge in the ocean so that they can reuse it, thus cutting the costs of launching a rocket into space just about in half. So their goal is to eventually make it so that going to space is just as mundane as taking a flight.
I would go to space in a heartbeat. Just gonna throw that out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Brian, you and I met. You came to my college
Yeah.
to do an improv show for their improv festival, and we talked about wrestling and stuff. So why don't you tell us a little bit about how you felt about the Royal Rumble?
Oh man. Well, I loved the pre-show match with Cesaro and Kidd. I thought they were a fabulous new tag team, and then also I loved the heavyweight championship match between Brock Lesnar, Seth Rollins, and John Cena. I thought that was a fantastic match.
Who walked away with that? Actually, I didn't actually get a chance to see the Royal Rumble, unfortunately.
Oh, it was great. Well, they re-aired it last night on Raw since they got snowed in.
Oh.
To have a Raw.
I don't have cable here, and that sucks.
That's all right, man.
Who won?
I'll give you the hookup. The championship match was won once again by Brock Lesnar, but it was very close. Really greatly paced match. Super fun stuff. And then the Royal Rumble, it was a little predictable this year, unfortunately, in that it was kind of clear that Roman Reigns was going to be the winner, and there wasn't really a whole lot of drama in that one. So I think a lot of fans were upset, and also the fact that Daniel Bryan, who returned from injury, gone for 1 minute, he was only in the Rumble for about 10 minutes, and it wasn't really an important 10 minutes. Fans booed for about the last 15 minutes of the pay-per-view.
That'll take care of that. This is what happens when you're a father, kids. Keep that in mind. In another bit of news that I'd like to talk about, just personally, there's that whole issue going on about Tom DeLonge apparently quitting the band, Blink-182, but he says he's not. So, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, it seems like because Tom put a thing out on I forget if it was Instagram or Twitter saying that he only found out about it through social media. So I have a feeling that the other fellas threw him out.
I think it could also be a management issue too, because it sounds like his managers were like, "Yeah, Tom's out," and then Tom was like, "But I never wanted out." that kind of thing. I don't know what it's going to be. So, I guess we won't really know until the festival
Tough.
that they're supposed to play.
Things come up, you know.
Yeah, you can't really do the same stuff you did when you were in your 20s.
Yeah, well, you end up getting other people depending on you for things, and that can be difficult.
Yeah, that's true. But I guess we'll see what happens.
You know, always hope for the best.
Yeah, man. So why don't you tell us a little bit about Octavarius, how it was formed, where you guys are going, or where you want to go, that kind of stuff.
How it was formed? Well, we were best friends in college, and we were trained in both short and long form improvisation. And then as we moved out to Chicago, we kind of saw the way things were, and we generally preferred to play in our group, and we thought we had a style that was unique. And so we came up with what would eventually become the Octavarius show. We started doing it in bars, and then eventually we started opening for people at small theaters, and eventually got enough following that we got our own show. And and then we were approached by this wonderful agent with GP Entertainment, which I think they're now part of a bigger corporation, and they send us out around the United States and tour. Then we ended up hooking up with CNGM Pictures to make I Made America, which is a fun web series still online, and it almost was a wonderful show on television, but due to a couple of changes at some networks, we were unable to get that show on the air.
Oh, well. No, I saw Keith is doing BuzzFeed now. Is he still part of Octavarius? Or?
He is, yeah. He's still at all the shows and doing the stuff with me, Mark. It's pretty great.
That's awesome. Everybody's doing great. Everybody's doing great.
Oh yeah, Mark is just taking a position of the Sony development or comedy development at Sony. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, so we'll see what goes on with that, and we're doing what we can. The boys are doing a little bit more of an executive administrative role, but Keith's still able to put himself in a bunch of those BuzzFeed videos. So I think that's pretty good.
That's pretty awesome, man. So as a good segue into our history of board gaming section, you can tell us what kind of experience with board games you have, like for favorite tabletop games that you played, ones that you have heard about that you want to try.
Oh yeah. I mean, I guess we're big into D&D. You know, that was a big thing for us. Do you guys play D&D?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. We play a few different ones.
Oh,
cool. The one that I've gotten into crazy lately is the Iron Kingdoms campaign, which is set. It's based on the rules from the tabletop war game that I also play. I play Sigmar. We play Signar. But the rules are a lot. I don't want to say they're simpler, but they work better together. So it doesn't take. It still takes the time to create a character. Like if you really take your time to read through the book and do that, but. Overall gameplay mechanics, it doesn't feel like you have wasted skills and things like that. Like it's pretty concise, and if you wanted to, you could even proxy a miniature on the table of a War Machine figure.
It's pretty streamlined.
That's the word I was looking for.
Cool. Yeah, I like. There are a few funny people here in LA and also in Chicago that get together and play. So it's fun to be around those folks. And, some of them make for pretty good dungeon masters, and it can be really fun.
Yeah, and with the advancement of technology, there's a lot of people who podcast their games out there now.
They do. Yeah, we're friends with a couple of people that do that. But I haven't gone on their shows yet. I don't know. The schedule's never lined up. Things like that.
Yeah, I've always loved playing. So, what about board games? Do you have any favorite board games?
You know, man, not. I haven't really had a whole lot of time to play those. I got in on a couple of games of Catan once, and that was pretty fun. Uh, but I haven't been able to play so many of these new ones. But a lot of the old Octavarius guys, they're not. They have a little bit more time on their hands. And they've been able to get really into it, and they actually make like a full game night at least once a week now. And I envy that a little bit, but I still like doing the shows and stuff, so that's been keeping me busy.
That's pretty awesome.
But yeah, like it seems like Catan is really blown up, and that's like kind of almost mainstream now.
Yeah, I think that's actually something to do with the article that just came out about the Green Bay Packers.
I did see that a couple of weeks ago too. Yeah, or maybe it was last week.
I don't know if you heard about that, Pat, but the Green Bay Packers apparently in the locker room play Settlers. I think it was.
No way. No, I didn't even hear that, man.
According to the story, they're pretty hardcore.
Well, I think who was it? Somebody on the I think it was Matt Flynn, who was the backup quarterback, didn't realize how important it was to the guys that played, because there's like these huge strategies and things you can do to play. And like, what else are you going to do in the frozen wasteland of Green Bay?
There's not really a whole lot of nightlife, you know?
Yeah.
Well, they got the cheese eating competition.
Cheese making competition for the cheese eating competition.
Milking competition.
There's not much up there that we know of, at least.
Maybe ice fishing.
For cheese fish.
Yeah.
I've played this game. Have you ever played Arkham Horror or heard of Arkham Horror? It's based on the Lovecraft mythos. It's really interesting and really well done. There's so many different. It's part of the Call of Cthulhu series. But I played with a group of people, and we actually found a website online that lets you make or design your own characters. We didn't really get to try them out, unfortunately, but I thought that was kind of cool.
You didn't even tell me this? Thanks,
this was
man.
way back. This was from Albright, man. This was like when we were all playing in our dorm and whatever. But I also played Magic too. Magic.
Who doesn't play Magic the Gathering, man?
I haven't followed it since like 2012, but I still have like older decks with stuff that I like. Yeah.
I think it's funny how they like to restrict cards, though.
Yeah, well, when you release cards that break, when you release something that breaks the game, you gotta, do something about it.
Well, then they let them back into the game later on.
Yeah, true. So yeah, do you want to segue into our secrets or hidden history, quote unquote, or just the history of wargaming?
Yeah, the history of wargaming. I thought it was pretty interesting how the model terrain and the main components, like the miniature figures, miniature armor, all those play came into being invented around the beginning of the 19th century in Prussia. I thought that was pretty freaking cool. And I don't know.
Well, I know. I know that they used them a lot in military simulation way back in the day. They would have lay the maps out, and they'd use just blocks that were marked with how many men you had, and they'd move them across the map and mark what the enemy territory was, etc.
What just happened?
I don't know. I lost you for a second.
Yeah, that was weird. So, where did it throw me off at?
You just finished talking about how they were main components of play introduced in Prussia.
Yeah.
I threw in they used to use them in military battle planning with the different colored blocks marked with the regimental distinction of how many men were each block, and troop territories and other troop locations, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, but you know what's funny about that? Because they were also simulating battles that had previously happened. They wouldn't stick to troop movements and things like that. So it was really an ineffective tool to train their leaders.
Yeah. So I see the notes you sent me. You talked about there was a book called How to Play with Toy Soldiers. So it was published in 1929. Whereas it was done by Mary Dowdall and Joseph Gleason. It's called Sham Battle.
Yeah.
So even as early as 1929, people were looking to expand on their already toy soldiers they had. Brian, I don't know if you had toy soldiers growing up, like I did. I had a ton of them.
I had a few.
You just had a few? We had like armies. We would do battle.
Oh yeah. Well, I also had GI Joes and Cobras as well, so I would play with the Joes. But yeah, I did have a solid amount of those little green men.
Yeah, the little green men. I think that's where everyone gets their start.
Yeah. I remember my brother and I, my half brother, we used to set up these huge forts in my room, and then just throw just stuff back and forth across the room, trying to knock over the soldiers. First who lasted the longest one.
Oh yeah.
So those were the days.
I just thought was another interesting fact was the fact H.G. Wells is considered the father of mini wargaming.
How so?
He wrote the book Little Wars in 1913.
Okay.
And, it was naval war rules, like the mini wargaming for naval battles.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a giant step forward.
And that guy, he really predicted quite a bit of stuff between H.G. Wells and Jules Verne.
Yeah. Yeah, whenever you say Jules Verne, I instantly think of Back to the Future Part 3.
Doc Brown named his kids Jules and Verne.
What?
Doc Brown named his kids Jules and Verne. The end of Back to the Future 3.
Nice.
Well, and we talked a little bit. I don't know if you have any experience. Any of you have any experience with Warhammer 40K, but you want to talk about how crazy the rules have developed into. There are more rules to 40K than I could even begin to explain. But it's an interesting concept that you build and paint the minifigures, and then how you equip them depends on how many points you spend on. If you want to spend on the army, blah 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 blah.
Huh. Don't they change the rules like every year?
Yeah, it's a money-making thing, I think, personally.
Have either of you guys ever read the book, The Universal Baseball Association Incorporated?
I have not.
Can't say I have, man.
It's about a tabletop game. The book's about maybe like 40 years old.
Okay.
And it's about this guy who creates this baseball game. He basically creates it because he extends it to eventually find, aside from probabilities of simulating a game with dice, he's able to even eventually find the probability that a player will die.
Oh God.
So this game becomes very real for him, and he loses basically all touch of reality. And to spoil it for you a little bit, in the later chapters of the book, it switches over from the reality of him playing the game to actually the reality of the people in the game. And it kind of gets into how far in finding out the probabilities for certain outcomes, how close is that to becoming an actual god?
Wow.
And it creates this whole baseball world. It's pretty fantastic. I don't know if it predates D&D. I forget. Does anyone know when D&D was invented? We have Google powers. We can probably figure that out.
To the internet.
Let me Google that for you.
I'm working on it.
It's a race.
It was created in 1974.
Oh, nice. This might have been before that.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's right around that time, because baseball simulation dice games were before D&D, and it was just you roll the dice to see if someone got a hit or strike or ball or whatever, and then where it went to, and people kept expanding that mode out into what is kind of like modern turn-based games.
Very cool. I didn't know that.
This book, Universal Baseball Association Incorporated. It's a ridiculous, like obscure book. But I ended up taking a class in baseball in college by mistake, and that is how I found out about this. And the massive culture behind, what used to be simulation sports games. Because they came up with it for football, basketball, and things like that.
Very cool. So, I guess we can throw it up into our forms of social media and see if anybody has any questions.
Question time.
If you are listening to this podcast and you have any questions, please feel free to send us a tweet or a Facebook post at #SpaceTavernGames. Question for us, question for Brian, anything? Nothing on Twitter.
Nope.
Nothing.
Well,
So,
another.
I'd say this is a pretty successful episode of At the Tavern. If Mike Gilmer, if you're watching this, you're my hero.
Our heroes.
Our hero. Mark, for you, Brian, Mike Gilmer is the first guy to comment on our very first YouTube podcast.
And he decided to follow us on every social media platform too. So
he became my hero.
Thank you, Mike.
So, well, Brian, I wish you luck with Octavarius and.
Thanks.
Yeah, it was nice meeting you.
Oh yeah, very nice talking to you, fellas. Hope to show you the fun stuff that we have coming. It's
yeah. Hopefully we can do an on-site game review or something with you guys at some point. That would be cool.
Yeah,
most definitely.
And as soon as we get some T-shirts, we'll send you some.
Oh, that would be great.
Yeah, for being a guest, you get a T-shirt. So.
Great. Yeah, well, you can always stay in touch with us. You can follow us on Twitter at Octavarius, or you can like us on Facebook. I'm already following Tyler there. And do you guys have a Twitter for the show yet?
We have one for our for Space Tavern Games. It's just I think it's just at Space Tavern Games.
All right, man.
Actually, I followed you just before the show started, so you'll see it.
Yeah, we're at Space Tavern MWG.
Awesome.
Yeah, but been great. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for stopping in.
Oh, thanks for having me, fellas.